Hello everyone, this is Lady Sweet of USA. Welcome to my YouTube channel. I'm here with my two beautiful daughters. We're going to discuss a little bit about domestic violence, and this is my oldest daughter.
Hi, my name is Ego So Bevlin, and yeah, I'm her oldest daughter. I'm excited to talk today.
My name is Osa Obevwin, and I'm her youngest daughter.
Okay, so with the trending news about Osinachi, who was domestically abused by her husband, and apparently everybody around her know about it, but she just keep begging for them not to say anything. You know, as a result, she lost her life in domestic violence. I'm pretty sure the husband didn't mean to kill her, but the routine beating, hitting her in the wrong location this time around, sent her to her untimely death. And while they were in the hospital, they could have said, well, this is what happened, so that they can, initiate appropriate treatment, but still trying to hide the domestic abuse. They couldn't tell the doctor or the medical professionals what the actual cause of injury was. As a result, she lost her life. Today is Easter Sunday 2022. I'm pretty sure the children didn't think they won't be celebrating Easter with their mom today. So, um, we're going to talk about domestic violence. So, Dara, what do you think about domestic violence?
Well, I'm not really super familiar with this news story, but from what it sounds like, number one, her begging her friends not to really do anything, that's not anything that's out of the ordinary for situations of domestic abuse. Most abuse victims, it's way easier to stay in that situation because it's what your brain and your body knows, rather than consider all the ramifications of people in your life trying to do something about it. A lot of times, even once women take that step to get restraining orders, it's often said like that's their last will and testament, because once you make that display of removing yourself from your abuser, that almost makes them like snap. And I doubt that he didn't mean to kill her, just because if he was able to put his hands on her in the beginning, like that's really a boundary. The boundary for me towards domestic abuse is really controlling speech and behavior. Like that's the line for me. But putting your hands on your partner, like once you cross that line, you really know no bounds after that. Yeah, this is a rampant epidemic. Femicide is everywhere, and it's not talked about in the news the way it should be. I'm sure even in this headline it was referred to spousal violence. I'm sure they didn't use the word femicide anywhere in the article or on the TV, but it is an epidemic, and it's indicative of a larger culture where men feel entitled to the submissiveness of women when that's really not how it should be. So.
Okay. Okay, now that you're talking about restraining order, we're in Western world, in the U.S., we do, the women or the man who has been abused will have the privilege to go get a restraining order against the partner. But like in a country like Africa, we are from Nigeria, like Nigeria, there's nothing like restraining order. It's like literally you're just on your own. So, Osa, here, what do you think about domestic violence?
My opinion on domestic violence is that these type of things are really difficult because no matter how much help that you want to give to that person, it's really difficult because that person, like you also said, they don't necessarily want you to really step in and get involved because they don't want too much, I guess, attention going towards their situation, and they are kind of used to it, and they don't want to know what happens next if they're not, I want to say, under like their the abuser's like power. They will feel kind of lost without it. So like kind of like a Stockholm type thing. So it's just because I know a person who is in a relationship with someone not abusive but like kind of like mentally, not physically abusive, I guess. And I it's just really difficult because you can't just tell like them to leave because that's not going to do it for them. So it's really, these situations are really hard, and it's, you can do like as much as you can, but at the end of the day, it's still going to be up to the person who is getting abused to really leave, no matter how much you give, which makes it difficult because most of the time they don't leave. So.
And it also goes into, like you said, making sure they have the resources available to help them once they leave. And I think you brought up a really good point about abuse victims feeling lost without their abuser. Like, again, that element of control is integral to the entire situation. And getting out from under that, you lose your sense of self in those situations. So once you're out from under that, you feel more vulnerable and less okay, honestly, than you felt in the abusive situation. So that's why it takes them such a long time to leave. And once they do, if there's no resources available to help them through that mental shift, because now you've suddenly gained back all of this autonomy that you'd had stripped from you, and you don't really know what to do with it because you don't think you deserve it yet. A lot of the mentality is, I deserve what's happening to me. And so getting out of that, and that's shifting that mindset to what happened was not my fault and had nothing to do with what I did, and all of the responsibility is on my abuser. Making that mindset shift is extremely difficult, especially if you don't have resources and help in mental health professionals after. So yeah, it's really no surprise that she was begging to keep everything under wraps.
Right. And also, when you talk about resources, like here in the US, we do have like Hope House. There are like shelter.
Yeah, many of them.
There's a lot of places where the victim can escape and go stay away from their abuser.
Yes.
But we don't have anything like that, traumatic cognition in Nigeria. And
it's also a cultural thing. Like, from my understanding, like, spousal beatings are not uncommon in Nigeria.
Yeah.
The culture of America, they say like it's uncommon, like it still does happen, but it is known to be taboo in American culture to put your hands on your spouse.
Right.
So it's just a different culture thing.
Like in Africa, the men are more dominant.
Yeah.
They have all the say, but like in Western world, the women, have have the say.
There's a pretense, that there is an equal playing field.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And another thing with the abuser is that they isolate their victim, away from loved ones, from family members. Like this lady that died, Osinachi, in a gospel singer with an angelic voice. She has an influence in the musical world, But even with that, the husband was still able to isolate her from her loved ones. She has a twin sister whom the husband was able to isolate her. So that's the first that's the first thing they do. They isolate the woman or the victim from relative, from loved one, from friends, and so that when they start abusing you, you really don't have anyone to go to. And another thing that
at least you think you don't.
Yeah, that's true, because they've manipulated their head, that they can just only depend on the abuser. They feel like they cannot survive without the abuser, which is totally false. And another thing that I think we need to look into, specifically in Africa, when I'm talking about Africa, I'm actually talking about Nigeria because that's where I'm from. I think the healthcare system should incorporate screening of domestic violence into the assessment process,
and come up with coded terms.
Exactly.
They do that in America.
Exactly.
Yeah, they do that.
Yeah,
exactly.
Right.
Even like with teenagers, they don't even let the parent be in the room when they're interviewing such like that. They will take the parents to step out for 1 minute and they will ask the kids those questions. And that's something that I don't think they do in Nigeria, and they need to start doing that and make sure they interview the patient without the significant order in there, because when that person is in there, you can't really say anything. There was a case that happened here in the US. The woman wrote in a little piece of paper, "Help me." She put it in her hand, while they were doing the assessment. The man was in there. That was before they started excusing the significant order from the room. So she handed the paper to the nurse, So the nurse read it and was able to call for help. They took them out of the room and they were able to rescue her. So they should be able to know the signs and symptoms of abuse. The abuser will always want to be in the room. We hold the person like this. When you are asking question, the abuser wants to be the one answering the question, and it will be like, poking you not to say anything. So things like this they need to find a way to incorporate into the treatment plan so that they will be able to assess for domestic violence. To be able to assess that this child or this woman or this man, is facing domestic abuse or is in a domestic abuse relationship. And also talking about having what's it called, like a shelter or a place for them. I think this woman, she goes to this very big church in Nigeria. This is my plea to Pastor Enoche. I think that's his name. He needs to build a welfare home in the memory of Osinachi. They should build a home, named it after her, for domestic violence, being it victim, being it a man or being it a woman or being it a child, that they can live in for at least 6 months to get on their feet before they can move out. And the church needs to start preaching about domestic violence, emphasize on it as much as they emphasize on paying your tax. They can tell you pay your tithe, pay your tithe, pay your tithe, but they shy away from things like this. They need to start speaking about it, and their mothers need to start teaching their daughters and their sons, don't accept domestic violence. It is unacceptable for anybody to put your hands on them. I know it's easier said but done, but if you incorporate them into them while they are young, they'll be able to stand up for themselves. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Yeah.
I have a couple of things to say. Behind domestic violence is, again, a larger culture of misogyny and patriarchal values. And I think that's why domestic violence can be so rampant and always progress too far, is because like you said, like the church shies away from that sort of thing. Well, like, who's to say that it's not almost supported because of, well, you should listen to your husband and he won't lay his hands on you. And it's going to take a lot of undoing and a lot of confronting and demanding respect as women from men, and men are going to have to come to the table too to demand that respect with us.
You're right.
Demanding that equal standing in society. That's really one of the only ways forward, because from that point on, once we start treating women like actual human beings and not possessions or objects, only then can we have these discussions and have them have value. Because no man wants to admit that there's a problem with his gender. No man wants to admit that maybe men are the problem in this situation. Maybe there's a behavior that we need to change. They don't want to admit that at all. So of course, like, your male priest isn't going to preach about domestic violence, because that's something that he can be a perpetrator of as well. And that looks bad. And who would admit to something like that? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And also, I do definitely think that the shelter for the church is a very, very, very good idea. Just because she had that community,
Yeah.
and she was such a part of that community, and no one was able to be like, what's going on? Like, I feel like there are so many stages during the progression from initial abuse to final femicide, that people can interrupt, but people are so concerned with minding their own business and not sticking their nose in where they don't think it belongs, that those things get overlooked again. Like, she was a huge person in that gospel community, and yet nothing was done by them.
Somebody
to
dropped
help.
the ball.
Yes, people are dropping the ball,
Right.
because they shy away from situations that they don't think their opinion, but it's false. Like, if you think that something's happening, it's way better to err on the side of caution and get involved and risk looking dumb than risk a life being taken by it. Like, there's really no competition between those choices to me.
Okay,
But
so very right. Also, you
yeah.
have something to say?
Yeah.
Okay.
I want to talk about like two things that you kind of said, talking about how like the patriarchal, um, and I guess systematic gender, like
Oppression,
yeah,
for sure.
and how even in America for the longest time, like it was also preached about how like women were more submissive to their husband, and that and in America, lots of things have already been done about that progressively. Like, yes, domestic abuse is still a big thing, but like more movements have been made to uplift women. Whereas in Nigeria, I don't know if that's really a thing there
Yeah, it's not.
because it's really traditional in Nigeria for the man to kind of be in control for the most part. And I feel like I don't want to say it's a direct. I want to say domestic abuse is a direct cause as a
Consequence.
consequence from it, but I want to say it's a really big factor because we've given men that power from the jump, from the get-go, and because of that their power is allowing them to kind of just do whatever they want to women.
It's a mentality. It's an ownership
Yeah, and so
mentality.
in order for this to really start declining at a rapid speed instead of like fluctuating and stuff, we need to, especially in churches, because I know, like at my church at some point they've done a preaching about the relationship between a wife and a husband and that power structure. I know in our church that was like a
Yes,
sermon,
I remember.
and I feel like we need to stop with those type of sermons.
Yes.
Because yes, there is a relationship between a wife and a husband, but it doesn't have to do with a power thing.
Yes.
And also, you said something about people wanting to mind their business and stuff. That's such a big thing. That's why I feel like we failed kind of the woman who lost her life to domestic violence, because although she said that she doesn't want you to tell anybody, that didn't stop them. That didn't prohibit them from continuing to seek help. But because they didn't want to get involved, because that was her. Because yes, the victim will be really upset with you when she finds out, when they find out that you told some authorities about it. It's going to benefit them
In the long
so much.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like she kind of was failed in that aspect because many people knew that she was getting abused, but not,
Sure.
but not one person really did anything about with that information because she told them not to,
Right.
and that was just really dumb. And I don't want to really blame the bystanders because it is a really really hard choice to do, getting involved in something like that, because that can affect like someone's life. But I just think that this could have played out way differently from the beginning if people decide to take a stand and just risk a broken relationship and to risk burning the bridge with said person, you know.
I
Yeah.
definitely want to touch on your
Opinion.
comment on power structures and patriarchal stuff. I totally agree, and that's why I'm really not surprised at the church's inaction, because again, in churches where you preach the wife's job is to be submissive to her husband, you are permitting domestic violence. Like, you have to either erase that notion whatsoever, because women and men are both just people. There isn't some inherent power that being a man gives you other than maybe physical strength, but that's not even a guarantee. And it's either you get rid of that notion entirely or you change the language and stop using the term submission, because this idea that women should submit to me as a man is what breeds, it's what is even allows there for there to be terms like corrective femicide. Like, you are supposed to be submissive to me. You're going to do what I tell you or I'm going to put you in the dirt. And I have a right to. You know, this is a thing in every culture. Honor killings, corrective femicide, call it whatever. Men have this innate entitlement to a woman's submission to him. And that culture has been a thing for not almost, all of human time. So we have to do something to start unlearning that. And it starts from young. Don't tell your daughter, oh, he's only mean to you because he likes you. Don't tell her that. You're teaching her to accept violence as love, and that's not true and it's not right. don't say, oh, a wife's place is to be submissive to her husband, and try to back it up with whatever religious thing you have, because that's dangerous, because we are not perfect beings. Men are going to take advantage of that, and women are going to die. And the church's inaction speaks volumes. Like, part of me really does believe that even if it did come to the attention of everyone, I don't think people really would have done anything about it, number one, because spousal killings are not out of the ordinary in Nigeria, or spousal beatings at least. And number two, that power structure is so, like, it's
dominant.
Yeah, it's so dominant. It's so dominant. Like, people really probably would have just left it alone,
right,
and call it marriage troubles, you know.
Right.
But yeah, like, if a man wants to put a woman in the ground, like, he's going to.
Right.
So I need women to really understand that deeply, and move about the world accordingly, especially you American women's.
And another thing, when you talk about the Bible said submit, wives should submit to their husband. What I've noticed in the body of Christ in the church is that, you know, even the Bible said husbands love your wives, but they don't preach, they don't emphasize or preach on that, and as much as they do when it comes to wife submit to your husband. You know, I remember growing up, it's only during men's week in the church, which is once a year, that they talk about why husbands love your wives. But they talk about wife submit to your husband like 365
Don't
days.
stand up to your
you know,
husband.
exactly. You know, the bottom line is that I know men do suffer domestic violence as well, but women are the one that get killed.
The rates are not comparable.
Exactly.
The rates are not comparable. 99% of the time when a woman dies, it's at the hand of a man.
Exactly.
So the rates are not comparable.
And also, period, nobody should put their hands on anybody. You know, you can if you have to say something, just say with your mouth. You don't have to hit, kick, you know, do any of that, right? So,
I agree.
My daughters, thank you for joining me today to do this video on domestic violence. And I'm really, really, really impressed to hear what you have to say about it. And I have the confidence that you guys will not accept domestic violence from any man, woman, or whatever, you know. We don't have domestic violence in this house anyways. You know, they say sometimes when the kids see their mother tolerating beating from their dad, then the women
generational.
Can see, exactly,
it's
and
totally
then the sons can do the same thing. So I thank you all for joining me today. You know, I'm so blessed to have these beautiful daughters of mine. Okay, that will be it. Please share this video. I want you to get to Dr. Pastor Enochi, the one that Osinachi goes to the church. He needs to do something in the memory of Osinachi. She just cannot die in vain. You know, they need to erect a building in her name, in her memory, with her name in it. The church has money. There's no two ways about it. You have money, you're going to do this, or else we're going to keep talking about you in social media for life. Share my video, and God bless you all.
Bye.
Bye.